wanted to do was talk about change, because I don't know about you, but it feels like change is happening to our industry at a greater pace than ever before. The consumer is becoming much more demanding. They want more personalisation, they want more choice, they want faster delivery, all for less money, and that makes the marketer's job really a lot more complicated. There's a lot of change politically and economically, and as far as legislation's concerned, and of course, digital is changing all of the time, all the technological transformation that's happening. It's really making it very challenging as marketers to keep pace with the change and understand how to respond to it. And again, this is why I think it's so important that we bring you together so you can share your experiences about how you're getting through and what you're doing to adapt. So if we look at the economy first, and of course, no presentation about 2017 would be complete without talking about Brexit. So it looks like we're definitely leaving. Article 50 has been triggered. So that creates a lot of uncertainty as far as the economy is concerned. Also, with the elections that are going on in Europe, again, it's very uncertain what's going to happen in Europe. And then Trump in the White House, who knows how that's going to pan out. So suddenly, we're in uncharted territory. Two things that we didn't expect to happen have happened. And what impact that will have on us, we are yet to see. But something to consider is the world economy is still strong. The US economy is very robust and continues to be predicted to be so. The growth in China continues to grow. The slowdown that was predicted a few years ago hasn't necessarily happened. And when the world economy is healthy, the UK tends to stay healthy, which is a really positive thing. And I'll show you some slides that show that actually the outlook isn't quite as gloomy as you might think. But one thing that really has affected everybody in this room is the devaluation of the pound against the dollar and the euro. Of course, as far as the country's concerned, it means that our exports are a lot more competitive. And so it has actually meant that our GDP for the end of 2016 has been much better, thankfully, because of exports. But a lot of you don't export. Most of you are importing your goods, and the exchange rate has wiped off 20% from your bottom line in a lot of instances, because it's costing 20% more to buy your product, and that's a real challenge. How do you mitigate that 20% loss? I know some of you are looking at your marketing plans, some of you are looking at increasing your prices to your customers. It's very difficult to know what to do. So stock is a real issue we do recognise for the industry. Now, those of you that joined us this time last year will remember Mark Pragnell from Capital Economics gave a talk on his outlook for 2016 and beyond for our sector. It was actually quite an inspirational talk, which is a bit of an oxymoron, really, I think, for an economist. But a few weeks ago, I attended Retail Week Live, and Roger Bootle, who is Mark Pragnell's boss, so he's the guy that heads up Capital Economics, actually gave his forecasts for 2017 and beyond. And he showed this graph looking at GDP 2014 to 2019. Now, you'll see that 2014, we actually were in a good position. It got really quite rocky in 2015. The first quarter of 2016 wasn't strong, but then, as we know, there's always a huge amount of uncertainty when there's something like an election or a referendum. But actually, once the referendum was over, the economy bounced back again. And actually, it was even better in the last quarter than it had been in the second quarter. Now, the outlook, I think we've all been watching the news. It's very uncertain what's going to happen. I think there is going to definitely be a knock-on effect, and Roger is definitely forecasting that there will be a decline in the next couple of quarters. So brace yourself. But the positive thing is he doesn't expect it to last long, and that actually by 2018 we should return to the sorts of levels that we were seeing in 2014. Now, I'm well aware it completely depends which economic forecaster you're talking to, because they've all got different opinions. But something to bear in mind is that most forecasters that were forecasting prior to the Brexit vote ended up revising up their forecasts several times throughout 2016 for what they were expecting going on to the future. So there's some glimmers of hope about our economy. Consumer confidence has had a rocky road this year. As you can imagine, the Brexit vote did make that plunge a little bit, but it recovered. And although it's down on a downward trend at the moment, and in February it dropped again by 1 point, so it went from minus 5 to minus 6. It is predicted, trading economics are predicting that it might be slightly up, the curve is slightly up or at least flat, but we'll see how that all pans out. And then if we look at more specifically retail, which is where we're all at, you'll see that actually retail sales continue to climb, and they have done year upon year upon year. So this is a good industry to be in. As far as retail sales is concerned across 2016, and this is the whole of retail, a respectable 3.1% growth, but most of that came in the second half of the year once people realised that the world hadn't imploded, once we'd decided that we were going to leave Brexit. But the good news is that for cataloguers and people that are trading online, the non-store retail sales growth was much healthier than that, 15.4%. So we're lucky that we're in that sector. So a bit later on today, Ben Collier will be taking you through the first view of the 2017 annual trends. So you'll be able to see what your combined data set actually said about 2016. And then I talked about digital revolution. So a lot is changing there. I think you've probably worked out yourself that the digital landscape is getting really complicated. To get your voice heard on the web is becoming harder and harder. So we have things like the Google Knowledge Graph. Now, it used to be, when you typed into Google, I'm home interiors business, you would get a list of different websites. That's not how it's delivered anymore. Google are about structured answers. So now what you get is you get a write-up and you get a map, and you don't necessarily get a list of different websites. So this makes it harder for you to get seen on the web. You now need to make sure that within your website you've got very deep knowledge about your brand so it can be picked up by the new Google Knowledge Graph and your customers can find you. Now that makes it a bit harder. Of course, we've got machine learning now. For example, the Amazon recommendation system. And if there are machines that are actually behind some of the digital selections that are going on, if you're a fairly new brand, how do you know that the machine is learning about your brand? Because there aren't people interacting with this. You need to make sure that you've got the right words that the machine can pick up so it understands your brand without your interaction. Anybody got one of these? Amazon Echo? Or using Apple Siri? So artificial intelligence is now becoming a big thing. Now, I have one of these in my kitchen, and I'm so excited about it, but I just don't know what to do with it. So I say, Alexa, give me a news brief, and I get my news briefing, and I say, Alexa, play me David Bowie on Spotify. Beyond that, I don't know what to ask it. Yet, voice search is the future. And so, how do you know what your client, your potential customers are going to ask the Amazon Echo, ask Alexa? So you need some way of actually driving them to ask the right questions. And then, of course, we've got ad blocking. That you do all your digital advertising, and then some of it's blocked. Particularly, third-party cookies are very impacted by that. And Conversant are going to be talking a bit later on today about ways around that. But it does make it a bit more complicated. There is so much going on in this space that I couldn't possibly talk about all the new innovation. So, has anybody heard of Mary Meeker? She is a venture capitalist. She's an analyst that works for a company called Kleiner Perkins. She reports on internet trends to Silicon Valley, and her report comes out every June, and it is the most anticipated report apparently in the world because it's so insightful. Apparently Forbes ranked her as the 77th most powerful woman in the world based on the strength of this information that she imparts. So if you haven't looked at it, I advise you go and check her out, because she's got lots of interesting things to say on the digital revolution. So I was talking about I don't know what to ask Alexa. If I get a catalogue through the door and I can thumb through my catalogue, I've got a bit more idea on what to ask Alexa. And I think most of you know, because you're here today because you mail catalogues, you realise the value of the physical medium and how important that still is to drive people online. And if people are not even getting to see what's online, it's going to be even more important. Then, of course, we've got data protection, as if we haven't got enough change going on. So, as you know, the regulation passed into law in May 2016, and we have until May 2018 to actually make it happen. And I know a lot of you are really concerned about it, and we actually have Christine Andrews talking a bit later to help guide you through what you need to do. But actually, if you take a step back and think, why is this happening? We're all consumers. And I have to say, I'm not really sure what happens with my data on the web. I know that sometimes I feel that data's been taken by stealth. The fact is, the consumer doesn't really trust business to look after their data right now, and that just exists. So the regulation is really helping the business to make the consumer feel that they can trust you more and trust us more. Because the consumer just wants more control, they want to be informed, they want choice. It's not that they don't necessarily want to share data, they just want to know what's happening with it. So the regulation is actually better for everybody. It is better for consumers because they're clearer. It's better for you because you're going to have a proper strategy as far as the way that you use and disseminate data. It's just fairer, it's more transparent, and that's the objective of the regulation. But Christine can tell you more a bit later. And it's because of all this change, again, that I've mentioned that collaboration is so important and that we come together to share data and ideas. So these are all you guys in the room, and this is just the people in the room, not necessarily all, well, it's not all of the Alliance members. So a huge range of businesses, lots of different experiences, and of course, you're all providing updates of your data. You're sending your full transactional file to the Abacus Alliance every month. Some of you are tagging your sites and actually collecting browser data as well. That's all being put into a big pot, and we have a huge wealth of information to understand what people are buying so that we can provide solutions that help you find new customers, understand your customers better than when you've got them, and to give you further business insight. With the regulation coming up, a lot of people have been saying, so how does this work? Who's the data owner? Who's the data processor? So I just wanted to clear that up. You own the data, it is your data. The Abacus Alliance is just a data processor. We're helping you all to combine it for your group benefit so that we can provide you products and services from your combined asset. So yeah, the data remains yours. It is never the property of Epsilon or Abacus. But this combined asset does give a huge wealth of information for you all to share. 80 million households, 26 million individuals. We have almost 5,000 different variables that we can access to make sure that we're targeting the right people for you. 540 million transactions, and we've been doing this for almost 20 years, so we know how to do it. We build hundreds of thousands of models every year. So the sort of marketing challenges that you can address with this data, I know many of you are doing this already. So it's not just finding new prospects from the Abacus Alliance database. If you understand what your inquirers are doing elsewhere in the market, well, they've already asked to get information from you. They're a bit warmer than the cold prospects. And then you can find new customers in other brands as well. Looking at your existing customers, understanding when somebody first comes to you what they're doing elsewhere. What's the value? Can you treat them differently in a nursery program than other people that perhaps have less value to you? Of course, a lot of you are using the segmentation solutions, and then when your customer hasn't engaged for a while, using that wealth of information to reactivate the right people, not everybody. And then market insight and business insight, and understanding how you compare with your competitive category. Now, we're very lucky to be part of a much wider organisation. So as far as you see, we are very, very focused on the UK, and we make that so. But we have a rich parent. We actually are part of the Epsilon group, which feeds up to Alliance Data. And Alliance Data is a $7 billion a year company. So they've got quite a lot of money. But what that means is that we get access to technology and development and knowledge that we wouldn't ordinarily get access to. And we can bring that to you in a way that we wouldn't be able to if we were individually or privately owned. An example of this is the support that we're getting on the data protection regulation. So we get access to the global privacy officer for Epsilon and Conversant. And I speak to her on a weekly basis about different things that crop up, because our business is floated on Wall Street. We cannot risk making the wrong decision. So we have to be whiter than white. So I'm very lucky to get access to data lawyers, and we can get whatever privacy experts that we need to get access to. So rest assured, we'll give you as much advice as we can. Epsilon has lots of strings to its bow. We've got the data, but should the needs arise in the future, we have got access to technology, agency capability, and digital services. And it's the digital part that's been really exciting for us over the last few years. The fact that we're a sister company to Conversant has created a huge amount of opportunity, and we're now able to help you target online as well as offline.